Okay, good morning, everyone. Good afternoon. Buenos días, buenas tardes. My name is Juan Carlos Sainz, and I'm the Dean of the University for Peace. I have the great honor and pleasure to welcome you all to the celebration of the International Day of, of Education. This event was approved by the United Nations General Assembly in 2019, and UPs, as a part of the mandate of the General Assembly, we are extremely proud to organize this activity with the support of the permanent mission of El Salvador at the United Nations, as well as the permanent mission of Costa Rica into the United Nations. And I have the honor and the privilege to give the floor to Ambassador Griselda Lopez for welcome words. Before giving the floor to Ambassador Lopez, I would like to share with you a couple of elements of her very impressive CV, even though that she's very young. Ambassador Griselda Lopez is a permanent representative of El Salvador to the United Nations since August 2019. She served as the chair of the 18th meeting of the States Party to the Convention of the Right of the Child in 2020. During the 76th and 76th session of the General Assembly, she has been appointed as the co-chair of the ad hoc working group on the revitalization of the work of the United Nations General Assembly. In June 2021, Ambassador Lopez was elected chair of the Special Political and Decolonizing Committee in the 4th Committee of the United Nations General Assembly for this 76th session. Ambassador Lopez holds a Master of Public Administration from the John F. Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University in 2018, and a Master of International Affairs from the Graduate Institute of International Development Studies in Geneva, in Switzerland, and a Bachelor of International Relations from the University of El Salvador. Ambassadora Lopez, the floor is yours.
Muchas gracias. Thank you so much, Dean Sainz. Allow me to express our appreciation to our dear colleagues from the Permanent Mission of Costa Rica and the Permanent Observer Mission of the University for Peace to the United Nations for organizing in collaboration with the Permanent Mission of El Salvador this event. And I will also like to express our gratitude to the distinguished rector of the university, Mr. Francisco Rojas, and to all our speakers for their participation. I am sure it will be a very interesting discussion. Having said this, allow me now to deliver a few remarks on the role of education in peace building. The COVID-19 pandemic, as we all know very well by now, has had an impact on all areas of life, including education. The pandemic exacerbating a pre-existing education crisis, and this means we must work very hard to prioritize education to transit from disruption to recovery. As stated today by the United Nations, education transforms lives, but education must also be transformed to meet the challenges of today and tomorrow. For instance, the digitalization of education has been an unprecedented change for countries like my own, El Salvador. During the pandemic, our efforts focused on reducing the digital gap by providing teachers, but also students with the necessary equipment and improving connectivity. Our strategies also aim at restructuring the physical spaces to which students will be able to return to in-person activities as soon as possible. And on this International Day, we have to reflect on how to mitigate the multiple impacts of the pandemic on children, adolescents, and youth, but also on education system, particularly on vulnerable communities, including in post-conflict contexts. Let me be clear, we face significant challenges in making education more resilient, more equitable, and more efficient. The pandemic has presented us with an opportunity to transform education, and we believe that this opportunity must be acknowledged and, most importantly, seized, take advantage of it. We commend the university's efforts throughout its 41 years, educating present and future leaders for peace, and thus contributing to the main objectives of the UN in matters of peace, security, human rights, and development. Let me finish with UP's motto: if you want peace, work for peace. And I would like to add today, if you want peace, study peace, and work for peace. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Lopez. Beautiful work. Thank you very much. And again, our gratitude to use the motto of the university in your work. Thank you very much. I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce to Ambassador Rodrigo Carazo. Ambassador Rodrigo Carazo is the head of the permanent mission of the Costa Rica into the United Nations. It's the second time that he served here in the United Nations. Between 1978 until 1980, he was a special ambassador of Costa Rica to the United Nations General Assembly to conduct many special missions, but especially on the establishment of the University for Peace. He has combined many activities in his life. He was the first ombudsman of Costa Rica, a position that he held between 1993 to 1997, and he was a member of the Legislative Assembly of Costa Rica between 2002 and 2006. Ambassador Carazo, thank you very much for your permanent support, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. And well, one of my very proud achievements in life is having been a professor at the University for Peace at some time in my life, and always related to that my small sister, University for Peace, a family, a very intense family feeling to that. And well, of course, it's always a pleasure to share endeavors here in New York with my sister Griselda Lopez, and here we are once again. Thanks to all participants in this forum, and then the speakers, particularly Ambassador Chowdhury. I can tell him that I have a mentor here in New York who is Ambassador Rabab Fatemi. So if you were his mentor, just imagine what you could mean to me at this moment. Thank you very much for being here with us, Professor Bausch-Maudry and Dr. Winston and Dr. Akilu for your presentations. And also a few remarks as we gather to celebrate this International Day of Education, and to highlight the importance of education as the single most important tool necessary to overcome despair, poverty, and build a better future for the persons and for societies. Education is the cornerstone of the 2030 Agenda, which is also the foundation for sustainable development and peace. Education supports the transformation processes, generating positive changes in security, in political institution, in economic regeneration, and in social development within societies. In this regards, I would like to stress these aspects. First, the COVID-19 pandemic has negatively impacted in a great way, in a great manner, the poorest and the most vulnerable persons in countries. And it has heightened the risk of social and economic collapse. The resurgence of COVID-19 still and its variations underscore the need for continued vigilance and preparedness, making investments in education even more necessary. Education is not a choice. Education is a fundamental right. Impediments for the achievements of a quality education, such as insufficient access or continuity, and social exclusion, marginalization, inequality, and nowadays the digital divide must be overcome. Girls, we know, are very much in a very vulnerable situation. Education plays a critical role in empowering women and youth, laying the foundation for lasting peace and sustainable development. Even at times of war and of pandemic, we must do our utmost to ensure that all children, boys and girls, have access to free and continuous education of high quality. Schools must remain safe havens where girls and boys can obtain this essential education without discrimination or fear. We like to remind, as a motto, even the existence of Article 26 of the UN Charter, which clearly states that the reduction of the military expenditures is a precondition for increased security. Costa Rica is a clear example. For over more than 70 years, having the country redirected the resources away from very costly military expenditures towards human security, towards education, health, and protection of the environment, while promoting conflict resolution by a peaceful means. I'd like to end this brief comment by mentioning citing Executive Director Henrietta Fore of UNICEF, who said, quote, change requires courage, preparedness, discipline, and political will, and it requires that we do more than the bare minimum. Trading in defense spending for our projects, such as investing in education, could have a significant impact on the world economy, generating, yes, a more peaceful world. Thank you very much, dear Dean Science.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Carazo, for your words. And as I said before, the permanent support of the government of Costa Rica to the mission of the University for Peace. Thank you very much. I have also now the pleasure to introduce Dr. Francisco Rojas Aravena. Dr. Francisco Rojas Aravena is the 8th rector of the University for Peace. And as he would like to introduce himself, he's a Latin American citizen that he was born in Chile. He has served working and studying about conflict and peace in Latin America all his life. He has served as rector of the University for Peace from 2008. Before joining the University for Peace, he was the Secretary General of Flaxo between the year 2004 and 2012. He was the director of Flaxo Chile from 1996 to 2004, and he has a bibliography for more than 200 books and articles in topics related to peace and conflict studies in the region. Rector Rojas, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dean Borgo. It's a great pleasure to say hello and my greetings to the three ambassadors, Ambassador Lopez, Ambassador Carazo, Ambassador Scholti, and also our colleague from UNESCO, Lily Gray. And a special greetings for Widet, is member of our International Council, and also Barbara Winston, the president of the Council of Peace, is an important entity related with the University for Peace. Also, I'd like to say hello, Fatima Akilu, member of our council, and a special hello to Denise Soto, the representative of the student of the university. Without education, there is neither progress nor stability. Without education, there is no peace. The main actors in the international system have failed to establish a new equilibrium which increase the danger of systematic crisis and those linked with the protection of the planet. We saw a lack of international governance. Only international solidarity, cooperation, along with education and justice, will enable us to find way to lasting solution. We must reaffirm our commitment with the multilateralism and United Nations. The resurgence of conflict can be seen in all levels. Tensions between the superpowers are on rise. Issues related to the nuclear conflict are returned. The same of the militarization of the space, trade conflict, technology competition, and cultural tensions. New threats and major dangers require new policies and action by the international actors. Political will is weak. The capacity to build a global governance is limited. This affects the Agenda 2030. Sustainability actions require prevent conflict. Urgent measures are imperative to address preventive and early warning conflict and post-conflict situation. Education in prevention is essential. The international context shows an increased disinstitutionalization, mistrust, and the emergence of a new variant of conflict. The COVID-19 aggravate them. Education and strengthening diplomacy for peace must get greater importance. This is a task promoted daily by the University for Peace. Climate change is the main threat to existence of the humanity. Our common house is in serious risk. Education in sustainability is critical. After the Glasgow results were poor, is more important than yesterday. Solidarity is required to face a new serious threat, including the pandemic. No country can be saved its own. Without solidarity regarding vaccine, there will be no possibility to defeat COVID-19 and saving millions of lives. Tolerance is the bridge for coexistence, transforming hopes in reality, creating life in peace, prosperity, joy, harmony, and love. Educating tolerance is to educate for a dialogue. We need to educate and train in leadership for change, tolerance, and peace, and basically in cultural peace, where Ambassador Chaudhry and Federico Mayor has a key role in their development. Protectionism, nationalism, and trade tension are increasingly. Similarly, there is an increase of authoritarianism, a disaccrediting of democracy, and the emergence of a messianic populism. The absence of cooperation makes progress and peace impossible. It is necessary to educate how to build cooperation. Global uncertainties generate more insecurity. Placing citizens in the center allows us to understand how security based on the people is what makes stability and development possible. Educating in human rights and human security is a permanent task. Building mutual trust is indispensable. Trust makes institutional building and effective cooperation possible. Trust is built through education. Education is the most powerful instrument for change. In October, the last year, in his report to the UN General Assembly on the work of the University for Peace, the Secretary General of the United Nations, Antonio Guterres, underscored how, I quote, education facilitates dialogue and exchange of ideas. It creates opportunity for tolerance, civic and harmonious coexistence, and building of peace society. Education has the capacity to transform conflict and able to understand the importance of cooperation. This is the quote of the Secretary General. Education builds informed societies and more opportunities for all. Education is possible to break down inequities and facilitate closing gaps. It's quite important to create a development and a special effort for girls and women. Without education, there is no peace. Education permits tolerance and interconnected citizen, necessary to educate to prevention. We have set to advance in the Innovation Peace Initiative, which seeks to create a global culture of peace inspired in innovation, artificial intelligence, and the use of informed and communication technology. This will be expand the UP's global virtual action in peace education, conflict resolution, in conjunction with Council of Peace under the leadership of Barbara Winston. We are training leaders for peace in large and small countries, in stable countries and in conflict zones, from China to Central America, from Costa Rica to Somalia, passing through the Balkans, Southeast Asia, Africa, and the Americas, filling the mission assigned by the United Nations General Assembly in 1980 to pursue the Resolution 3555, to promote among all human beings in a spirit of understanding, tolerance, and peaceful coexistence. The UPs continue to educate leaders for global governance, leaders for peace, development, tolerance, collaboration, and harmony. If we want peace, we have to work for peace. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rector Francisco Rojas. Many thanks for your work and the important information that you provide about our resolution of the General Assembly that passes our report presented by the Secretary General with the support of Ambassador Lopez as Ambassador Carazo, that he obtained more than 120 co-sponsors in our resolution. Thank you very much, Rector Rojas. Now I have the honor to introduce Ambassador Anil Chowdhury. Ambassador Chowdhury has been a career diplomat, as a permanent representative of Bangladesh to the United Nations, President of the United Nations Security Council, President of the UNICEF's Executive Board, also Under Secretary General of the United Nations, Senior Special Advisor to the United Nations General Assembly President, and recipient of the UTAN Peace Award, the UNESCO Gandhi Gold Medal for Cultural Peace, the UN Award of and the University of Massachusetts Boston Chancellor's Medal for Global Leadership for Peace in 2018, the Global Women Peace Award, the recipient of the inaugural Global Citizen Award by the Soka University in 2001, as a permanent defender and promoter of the commitment of culture of peace. Everyone who is around this topic and the international community knows that Ambassador Chowdhury is the person who permanently supports the dialogue around the culture of peace. So thank you very much, Ambassador Chowdhury, to joining us, and the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, dear Dean, for this kind introduction. Greetings on the International Day of Education, which is being observed today all around the world as a recognition that education is a human right and a public good, and also a public responsibility. UNESCO has called on governments and all partners to make universal quality education a leading priority. I thank wholeheartedly the permanent representative of Costa Rica to the UN, Ambassador Rodrigo Carazo, and the permanent representative of El Salvador to the UN, Ambassador Griselda Gonzalez Lopez, and their missions, as well as the University for Peace, in organizing this webinar on this day of significance on the theme, the role of education and on peace building, in peace building. The introductory remarks by UP's rector and dear friend, Dr. Francisco Rojas Aravena, laid down very nicely the essential focus of our event this afternoon. I note with great pleasure the presence of Madame Vidya Bushamawi as a panel speaker. I recall her powerful keynote speech at the UN High-Level Forum on the Culture of Peace in 2015. As I have stated on many occasions, my life's experience has taught me to value peace and equality as the essential components of our existence. Those unleash the positive forces of good that are so needed for human progress. Peace is integral to human existence in everything we do, in everything we say, and in every thought we have. There is a place for peace. We should not isolate peace as something separate or distant. It is important to realize that the absence of peace takes away the opportunities that we need to better ourselves, to prepare ourselves, to empower ourselves to face the challenges of our lives, individually and collectively. For 2 decades and a half, my focus has been on advancing the culture of peace, which aims at making peace and nonviolence a part of our own self, our own personality. This is the core of the self-transformational dimension of my advocacy around the globe and for all ages, with special emphasis on women, youth, and children. This realization has now become more pertinent in the midst of the ever-increasing militarism and militarization that is destroying both our planet and our people. You would recall that the International Congress on Peace in the Minds of Men was held in Yamoussoukro, Côte d'Ivoire in 1989, organized by UNESCO under the wise and dynamic leadership of my dear friend Federico Mayor Zaragoza. Then UNESCO Director General, was a landmark gathering to give a boost and a profile to the concept of the culture of peace, aimed at promoting a change of values and behaviors. On 13 September 1999, more than 22 years ago, the United Nations adopted the Declaration and Program of Action on the Culture of Peace, a monumental document that transcends boundaries, cultures, societies, and nations. It was an honor for me to chair the 9-month-long negotiations that led to the adoption of this historic norm-setting document by the United Nations General Assembly. A significant aspect of this essential message has, as articulated in the UN documents, effectively asserts that the culture of peace is a process of individual, collective, and institutional transformation. Transformation is of the key relevance here. The essence of the culture of peace is its message of equality, inclusiveness, and of global solidarity. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development of the United Nations, in its Sustainable Development Goal number 4.7, includes, among others, promotion of culture of peace and nonviolence, as well as global citizenship as part of the knowledge and skills needed to promote sustainable development. It also calls on the international community to ensure that all learners acquire those by the year 2030. In my introduction to the 2008 publication titled Peace Education, a Pathway to a Culture of Peace, I wrote, and I quote, as Maria Montessori had articulated so appropriately, those who want a violent way of living, prepare young people for that. But those who want peace have neglected their young children and adolescents, and that way are unable to organize them for peace. UNICEF has articulated peace education as the process of promoting the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and values needed to bring about the behavior change that will enable children, youth, and adults to create the conditions conducive to peace, whether at an interpersonal, intergroup, national, or global levels. Peace education needs to be accepted in all parts of the world, in all societies and countries, as an essential element in creating the culture of peace. It deserves a radically different education, one that does not glorify war, but educates for peace, nonviolence, and international cooperation. They need the skills and knowledge to create and nurture peace for their individual selves as well as for the world they belong to. Never has it been more important for us to learn about the world and understand its diversity. The task of educating children and young people to find non-aggressive means to relate with one another is of primary importance. All educational institutions need to offer opportunities that prepare the students not only to live fulfilling lives, but also to be responsible, conscious, and productive citizens of the world. For that, educators need to introduce holistic and empowering curricula that cultivate a culture of peace in each and every young mind. Indeed, this should be more appropriately called education for global citizenship. Such learning cannot be achieved without well-intentioned, sustained, and systematic education that leads the way to the culture of peace. If our minds could be likened to a computer, then education provides the software with which to reboot our priorities and actions away from violence towards the culture of peace. The global campaign for peace education has continued to contribute in a meaningful way towards this objective and must receive our continuous support. For this, I believe that the early childhood affords a unique opportunity for us to sow the seeds of transition from the culture of war to the culture of peace. The events that a child experiences early in life, the education that this child receives, and the community activities and socio-cultural mindset in which a child is immersed in, and all contribute to how the ways of their lives are shaped. We need to use this window of opportunity to instill the rudiments that each individual needs to become agents of peace and nonviolence from an early life. Last week, I read with keen interest a report released this month by the London-based Institute for Monitoring Peace and Cultural Tolerance in School Education. It analyzed the educational curriculum in the United Arab Emirates, which teaches that prosperity and national pride are closely associated with peace and tolerance. Engagement and cooperation with the rest of the world are lauded. Textbooks offer a realistic approach to peace and security, teach patriotism and anti-radicalism. Peacemaking is by far the priority. While students prepare for a highly competitive world, in the Emirati curriculum, they are taught compassion, positive thinking, and well-being for all. This is impressive and offers an opportunity for countries to benefit from it, shaping their own educational curriculum. Connecting the role of individuals to broader global objectives, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. affirmed that, and I quote, "An individual has not started living until he can rise above the narrow confines of his individualistic concerns to the broader concerns of all humanity." End of quote. The UN Program of Action on the Culture of Peace pays special attention to this aspect of an individual's self-transformation. In this context, I reiterate that women have a major role to play in promoting the culture of peace in our violence-ridden societies, thereby bringing in lasting peace and reconciliation. Women's equality makes our planet safe and secure. It is my strong belief that unless women are engaged in advancing the culture of peace at the equal levels with men, sustainable peace would continue to elude us. We should always remember that without peace, development is impossible, and without development, peace is not achievable. But without women, neither peace nor development is conceivable. The work for peace is a continuous process, and I am convinced that culture of peace is absolutely the most essential vehicle for realizing the goals and objectives of the United Nations in the 21st century. Let me conclude by emphasizing that the role of education should be to encourage the young people to be themselves, to build their own character, their own personality, which is embedded with understanding, tolerance, and respect for diversity, and in solidarity with the rest of humanity. That is the significance of the culture of peace. It is not something temporary or occasional, like resolving a conflict in one area or between communities, without transforming and empowering people to sustain the peace. Let us resolve on this International Day of Education to shape the role of education in embracing the culture of peace and global citizenship as emphasized by the United Nations, for the good of humanity, for the sustainability of our planet, and for making our world a better place to live. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Choudhury, and many thanks for reminding us the importance of the culture of peace and the global citizenship as a concept. Thank you very much. Now, moving forward on our agenda, we are very happy and proud to present a panel discussion. This panel discussion that was created after intense debate with the support and guidance of Ambassador Lopez and Ambassador Carazo, how we should bring to this webinar an overview of the education for peace, our view of how we try to transmit the way that the University for Peace take these topics into the reality. So we brought a panel of 5 women and 1 man for this panel, from leaders of peace, diplomats for peace, field worker for peace, and last but not least, a student of our university, our current student, to have a global overview of what we're trying to do. The panel will be as follows. First of all, Madame Wided Abouchamouai, our Nobel Peace Laureate and the UP's Council member, Dr. Fatima Akilu, the UP's Council member, Ms. Lily Gray, the UNESCO representative to the United Nations, Ms. Barbara Winston, the chairperson of the UP's Commission for Peace, Ambassador David Fernandez Puyana, the permanent observer of UPs to the United Nations in Geneva, and Ms. Denise Maria Soto, the president of the Student Council of UPs. I would like to start presenting for this panel to Madame Wided Bouchamouai. Madame Bouchamouai holds a master's degree in international business for the Institut Supérieur de Gestion de Tunis and an international trade law from the Faculty of Juridical and Political Sciences from Tunis. Is shareholder and administration of the Heidi Bouchamouai Group. She's also the founding member of the Connecting Group and the vice president of the Tunisian Foundation of Control and Governance. Since 2011, Ms. Bouchamouai has presided the Tunisian Confederation of Industry, Trade and Handicraft, becoming the first woman elected to this position. In 2013, UTICA, in partnership with the UGTT, the Tunisian General Labor Union, the Tunisian Human Rights League, and the Tunisian Order of Lawyers, created the Tunisian National Dialogue Quartet. And as such, they obtained the Peace Nobel Prize laureate in 2015. I have the honor and pleasure to give Madame Bouchamouai the floor. Thank you with it.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be with you today, even it's an online session. Thank you so much, dear friends. I mean, dear rector, dear dean, the ambassadors. Really, it's a great day for us because today we celebrate the International Day of Education, and we cannot, celebrate this without recognize the effort from the students, the effort from professors and parents also, because we as parents, we have always to be, behind our children, and we all of us, we aspire that they'll have, better future than us. To speak about peace, for me, it's, it's like my, how to say it? For me, peace is something which is, I believe on, I trust on, but we need all our effort to make this peace possible everywhere. First, I'd like to say one point about the education. I think what we learned from this COVID pandemic is there is inequality everywhere. When the schools, they turned off, remote learning, I think as I'm from Africa, and I think it's the same case in different countries in the third world. We noticed that there is, let's say inequality because different, thousands of students and the children, they stayed at home because they don't have access to, new technology. They don't have laptop, they don't have, internet. And this is, so we can, remark this inequality everywhere. This is the first point. Second, even, for the education, that let's say, even it's a right, one of child right. In some places, till now, we are in 2022, some different parents, they don't allow, particularly girls, to go to schools. There is, even it's a right, till now, we remark that I think it's due to some mentality, it's due some, there is no, there are no restrictions from the government. That's why, still we have to work and we have to communicate more, and we have, like United States, United Nations and different international institutions to push government to really to afford this right for every child. I think it should be like in Tunisia, with school, it's compulsory till 16 years old. This is one way how we can build a nation, how we can assume that this nation will be aware about their rights and about what they have to do. the other point that I'd like to also to focus on is how we can, build peace with people that they don't have access to education, or maybe the system of education is quite different. I think what we have to do is to explain the role of peace, how we can be a peaceful country, how we can assume this peace if we don't have these passions to listen to each other, to understand each other, to accept others, and also to accept the differences. This is, I think it's what is very important is our way of thinking about others. And if we are ready and we are aware that we can live together, maybe we can build peace together. And we need to accrue some moral values, some norms, some etiquettes, to know how we can behave. And this, we can do through education, of course, through communication, and we have to prepare this generation how to afford this to children and students. In some areas where we remarked till now we have conflicts, still, the conflicts that are let's say a way to because people they don't have access to education, people they don't have access to the freedom, they don't know the democracy, the people they don't know how to live together. This conflict situation till now, the first person that they are really touched are children and schools. We can remark in every place, in some places, we have to bomb, some schools are attacked, some students are kidnapped, and sometimes we don't know what to do because we don't have the information, or maybe we don't have access to these people. So and in some armed conflict situation, education is really something which is like a dream for students, because when people in some armed conflict zones, schools are closed. The other thing I'd like to also to focus on it is it's how we can reduce this inequality between people, how we can reduce the inequality between countries to give us this the opportunity to study. Because if we have this opportunity to study, to be educated, we can think that we can the peace it's something easy, because it depends on our way of thinking and our way how we can be together. As let's say, as a woman, as a mother, I think we have a big role to play. We have a big role to play to push everybody, from the civil society, the governments, to offer this, to establish this way how with the education could be the only solution to avoid conflicts and to offer the peace everywhere. We have a role to play at home, we have a role to play outside home, and we have also, that's why we should be involved in politics, we should be involved in civil society, and we should be involved in establishing the programs for students. It's very important. Also in some countries, some programs are really so strict, and or some programs they don't follow what is happening everywhere. That's why I don't like to be so long, but if you have some questions, maybe we can answer to this question. Thank you so much.
Merci beaucoup, Wided, for your intervention. Thank you very much. Now I have the pleasure to introduce Dr. Fatima Akilu. Dr. Fatima Akilu is the Executive Director of the NIM Foundation in Nigeria. She's also a university educator and advocate for marginalized group working in psychology and health for more than 2 decades. Previously, head of communication for the Senior Special Assistant to the President of the Millennium Development Goals. She was the chairman of the editorial board leadership newspaper. Until recently, Dr. Akilu was the director of Behavioral Analysis and Strategic Communication Unit at the Office of the National Security Advisor, who has led a multi-pronged approach to countering violent extremism that consists of prison radicalization, counter-radicalization, geared at building community resilience, and a strategic communication effort, including public diplomacy and messaging. Dr. Akilu is also a children's writer and hosted a weekly radio show, Radio Psych, which discusses social and psychological issues. She holds a bachelor's degree in English, a master in research methods in psychology, a PhD in psychology from Reading University in Berkshire, the United Kingdom, and she's also a member of the UP's Council. Before giving the floor to Fatima Akilu, I would like to inform you all that in this platform in Zoom, we have currently 77 people connected, and we are broadcasting this event into the United Nations system and also into the UP's system of communication, just to have an idea the impact that we are having. I have the honor to give the floor to Dr. Fatima Akilu. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you so much for your really kind introduction. I hope you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, great. Your Excellencies, ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. It is such a pleasure to be asked to speak at this event. The invitation came from my UP's family, whom I hold very dear, especially under the leadership of Rector Rojas. And it's humbling also to be in the presence of so many people who have dedicated their life to working for peace. As we all noted, the last 2 years really have changed us all in ways that have been unprecedented. The global pandemic has caused disruption in every sphere of human life, but it has also caused us to be bolder, more innovative, and more forward-thinking. Every age has had the production and dissemination of knowledge as the bedrock for advancing their civilizations. And historically, we have seen that over time, societies that have prioritized education have done so much better. In recent years, we have also seen decades of gains in our educational provision suffer setbacks. This has been due to school closures, teacher absences as the pandemic progressed. But at the same time, we also reaped untold benefits from our centuries-long investments in technology. We became more imaginative in developing hybrid systems rather quickly and ensuring that remote learning continued. While this has benefited countries in the North, it has been disastrous for those in the global South, where only 11% of learners in sub-Saharan Africa have access to technology infrastructure, and only 18% can access the internet. This has further widened the gap between the two worlds. We've seen large investments in education, especially access for girls, decline somewhat, with families having to choose between feeding themselves or keeping their daughters in school. Countries from Afghanistan to certain parts of Africa have married off their school-age daughters in increasing numbers during this pandemic, forever blighting their dreams and aspirations for a better life. Also this period, we saw a decline globally in boys completing their education, which will likely have an impact in the decades ahead. So as we grapple with these and other problems in our educational landscape, we're witnessing countless disruption in our polity. No continent is immune from the increasing conflict landscape. This includes the expansion of extremism in groups in the Sahel, rising extremism in Europe and America, to the growing culture of intolerance and discrimination. It is only fair to say that we as a global community are not yet fully at peace. So as we pause to take a breath and survey the global education landscape, I think we can all agree on a few things. That education at its best is a common good, that education is a human right, and that education might be our best tool for peace. As we think about the intersection of education and peace, we must consider a few things. Is the way that we learn and the content of the knowledge that we're imparting fit for this century? Does it address our universal values? Does it teach tolerance, respect for others, understanding of diversity? In recent times, curriculums across the world have become subject to scrutiny from politicians, parents, as well as from administrators. What we teach our children is becoming a new battleground. For example, how much of the past should be taught to our children? These are new and emerging conflicts within the education space, but perhaps they are a mirror to the increasing fractious nature of the general debates that are raging today. In our lifetime, we've seen unprecedented access to learning. These include both content and training online, millions of resources that can be accessed at the click of a button from anywhere in the world. We can now access the content of a whole degree, for example, from the comfort of our living room. It has democratized knowledge in a way that is unprecedented. Today, we can talk about how we harness education and access to knowledge as a power for good and as a pathway to peace. At this point, let me highlight a small example. We run a school for girls in Northeast Nigeria. A third of the children in our school are biological children of Boko Haram, the terrorist group operating in the area. A third are children of the vigilante group that fought Boko Haram. And the other third are children whose parents were killed by Boko Haram. In using education as a vehicle for change with this group, we developed a curriculum that focused on peace building. Our subjects included dialogue, acceptance, tolerance, forgiveness. We also used a values-based curriculum, and sports was used as a mode to teach inclusion. The school serves as a platform to bring together all the surviving parents from these three groups, as well as the wider community to dialogue, to heal, and to forgive. It serves as a tool not just for education, but to heal division, to provide a different future to girls who had never gone to school before. And it is regarded by many as a scaffolding holding these three different communities together. So what has this taught me about education and peace building? It has taught me that for us to advance, there must be access for both boys and girls, that the content of what we teach must reflect the times that we live in. It is important that children are taught to think critically and deeply, that values are taught and reinforced alongside traditional subjects such as math, literature, and science, that we can harness technology to increase our reach and teach the skills needed for our time, and that we must bridge the divide between the global North and the global South. Education should be equally accessible to all, especially as we live in an increasingly interconnected world. So, in conclusion, I'd like to say it's been an honor to be asked by the University of Peace to contribute to this important discussion. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fatima Akilu, and thank you very much for your perspective, not just from the ground, what you are actually doing in Nigeria and the rest of the world, but also your particular overview of the topic. As you well aware, the type of education that we're facing right now with COVID changed the way that we normally teach it. So thank you very much for your guidance here and also at the UPeace Council. Now I have the privilege and honor to give the floor to Ms. Lily Gray, that she's currently the UNESCO representative to the United Nations. Ms. Lily, the floor is yours.
Warmly the permanent representatives of El Salvador and Costa Rica and UPeace for raising high the flag of education on this special day. Happy International Day of Education to all participants and panelists. And I'm indeed glad and honored to join. The guests in celebrating the contribution of education to the peace building. As mentioned by many of the previous speakers, leaving no one behind starts with education. It starts on the school benches, it starts in the classroom, but it also starts with a community of students, parents, teachers, and school administrators working together. Yes, indeed, education is a powerful and catalytic driver for peace and security,
for human rights, as well as for the SDGs, from ending poverty to improving health and well-being. It is through education that learners develop the competencies to secure decent jobs, or the skills and behavior to take actions to combat climate change, or the values, the values to really build inclusive and peaceful societies. We know that education also carries the potential to reduce inequalities and thus build inclusion and equity, which are at the very heart of sustaining peace and peace building. We all know that the global agreement on SDG 4 certifies that education is a fundamental human right and not a private commodity. This SDG gives a clear message that 12 years of quality schooling is mandatory, with emphasis on access, equity, learning, quality, and of course, on adequate financing for education. Against this recognition, I would like to just make a few points, and I'm thankful for your attention to that. First, nowadays, unfortunately, governments have not ensured quality basic education as a fundamental human right for all at the global level. The picture in low-income countries is warning. 3 out of 5 youths are not in secondary education. 1 in 4 are illiterate, while the net enrollment ratios in primary education is less than 60% in a number of West and Central African countries, in Afghanistan and elsewhere. Also on the quality front, whether or not children and youth are learning. Indeed, data on minimal proficiency levels in reading and mathematics are discouraging. What is most alarming is that 2/3 of those who are missing on their expected learning outcomes are actually in schools. Another fact, in 2019 UNDP report on Human Development Index points out that only 3% of adults have a tertiary education in low human development countries, compared with 29% in developed countries. We all know that global picture has been aggravated by COVID-19 as due to the global disruption in education, including worldwide school closures, impacted negatively more than 1.5 billion children and youth at its peak. This negative impact was certainly worse felt for the most marginalized members of vulnerable groups. And we, the international community, are yet to evaluate the learning loss and whether or not children and youth will be able to catch up on it. Indeed, much of the progress achieved in the last decade has been stalled. Data clearly shows that globally, the world is not on track to achieve SDG 4, with the risk of leaving hundreds of millions of children, young people and adults behind in 2030. Secondly, given current global trends, such as widening inequalities, rapid scientific and technological change, but also environmental damage and climate change, as well as clear challenges to peace, democracy, and human rights, and uncertainties about the future of work, education must be regarded as part of the efforts to shape the future we want. And that's why education needs to be transformed. I would like to highlight that this was one of the findings of a recent milestone report that UNESCO produced on the futures of education. Too often, students are receiving guidance without connection to everyday lives and contemporary challenges. And that is why UNESCO is calling for a revision of curricular and learning outcomes in order to strengthen the focus on ecological, intercultural, and interdisciplinary learning. This change in the curricula should be complemented by change in pedagogies that need to foster cooperation and solidarity, for example, through project work, through group problem solving, and other collaborative techniques. Pedagogies of cooperation and solidarity would allow for the development of the competencies that need to address shared challenges. I briefly want to also mention one aspect that most of the speakers also touch upon, indeed the digitalization and more broadly the current industrial transformations, often referred to as the fourth industrial revolution. It definitely has attracted policy attention worldwide, given its huge impact during the global education closures, but also due to the rapid changes in both the demand for and supply for specific youth skills. It is clear that we need to refine how to equip the youth with quality, relevant 21st century skills that would prepare them for the future, and moreover, would enable the young people to address these major challenges. In the context of peace building, this would include the need to ensure schools prepare young people to be competent, but also responsible citizens and learners throughout their lives as to engage on global issues facing the planet. And this comes with the development of digital competencies that is very much linked to the right to quality education and to the right to information, the right to science, and the right to connectivity. There are all these clear interlinkages between these human rights. And finally, I would like again briefly to mention a very key element for the role of education for peace building, and indeed is the need to address girls and women's empowerment through education. We know we are still far from achieving gender parity, and again hampering progress across the SDGs, but also across the peace building processes globally. Indeed, full equality for women, this is a hallmark of our civilization, and this should be achieved, and this should definitely double the intellectual powers of our human race. So I want to thank you once again for the opportunity to engage with you today, and happy International Day of Education. I look forward to the following discussions. Thank you, and over.
Thank you very much, Ms. Litgray. Thank you for your time. And, you know, it was very important that the numbers that you share with us, how the SDG number 4 is going behind with all these crises of the COVID-19 that we are sharing. Thank you very much, but very much, thank you very much for the happy International Day of Education. Now I have the honor and the pleasure to introduce Barbara Winston, the chairperson of the UP's Commission for Peace. Barbara Winston is the president and the founder of the Commission for Peace, and as such, she is the new member of the UP's family. Barbara Winston also serves as director of Keeping Identity Safe, which was founded by Donald Kendall, Chairman Emeritus of PepsiCo. She was also the former president of the United Nations Women for Peace Association and a trustee of the Institute of International Education, which focuses on international student exchange and aid, foreign affairs, and international peace and security. At the International Institute of Education, Barbara was on the Fulbright Scholarship Committee. The Fulbright program is the international exchange program sponsored by the United States government, designed to increase the mutual understanding between people of the United States and the rest of the world. Barbara is also a member of the President's Circle at the Asia Society Policy Institute that tackles policy challenges confronting the Asia Pacific in security, prosperity, and sustainability. I have the pleasure to give the floor to Barbara Winston. Thank you, Barbara.
Your Excellencies, ambassadors, it is a great honor, esteemed diplomats, ladies and gentlemen, it is a really great honor for me to be here today. Ambassador Shadori and Rector Rojas, your speeches were so encouraging and so enlightening, and I want to give great homage to your great erudition. Everyone on the panel here, it is honestly an enormous, wonderful privilege to be in the company of such esteemed lions of peace. I am the founder, as Dean Borgo mentioned, I am the founder and the president for the Commission for Peace, which was formally established in partnership with the United Nations University for Peace in May of 2021. Having served as a human rights advocate and women's rights advocate also for many years with the UN, I knew of the University for Peace. They should learn. I decided everyone in civil society should know about the University for Peace. They should learn from the university's teachings and from the symbol of UPeace's creation as well by the Charter of the General Assembly. It is a symbol of our collective humanity and for the capacity for peace available within all of us. The motivating mission that has come forward is to deconstruct the DNA of violence, to construct the DNA of peace. That is the great objective of the work that I have initiated. The commission was formed to carry out an initiative for peace innovation called the Peace Innovation Initiative. It is our initiative with a mission to create a global practice of peace. We do so through building an ecosystem of support for harnessing industry strengths and technology to innovate for a global culture of peace. I'd like to elaborate on the Peace Innovation Initiative. It's built to create, as I said, the global culture of peace through peace-inspired innovation. You know, at this time, we are dealing with an exponential transformation of society, industry, and technology. We have to really initiate a global brainstorm. And there is a new math of creativity that we would like very much to make as the nucleus of a new global ethic of peace. PII is building an ecosystem for sustainable peace building by bringing all society sectors together and harnessing their relative strengths and insights to innovate for change. PII, Peace Innovation Initiative, envisions a world where our global systems are built on foundational framework for sustainable positive peace. In other words, reconstructing the foundational structure that we have in place today. In order to create such a world, we will invest in original collaborative research on peace and technology, build a digital peace education platform, design and build peace innovation projects and products, create commercialization opportunities for peace innovations, engage in high-level media campaigns and public talks, build and offer training and consultation to the private sector and interested institutions on peace, peace innovation, and the integration of the UN Sustainable Development Goals, SDGs. This Peace Innovation Initiative will operate in a self-sustaining manner, where its outputs support its infrastructure in a circular model. In this way, our values of peace as a practice will create the circular system that is actually the effective way to create positive change and achieve the 17 SDGs. The 6 primary activities will be to develop, design, create peace tech projects, products, and programs, create and operate a digital learning platform for peace and peace innovation, produce original research on peace building and technology, host high-level talks virtually and in person to promote peace and peace innovation, as well as at the University for Peace in Costa Rica. We will run media campaigns to promote a culture of peace and to promote peace education. And lastly, provide training and consultations to corporations and other entities interested in learning the skills of peace building, implementing peace and SDG innovation in the workplaces and their operational structures. This is a very, very ambitious plan, but we feel that we have on our commission the intellectual muscle and capability of people that can take the great work that has been done by Rector Rojas and Dean Borgo and absolutely make it on an exponential level so that it is available to all society, to all the global stakeholders. So we pray to God that we can change what's going on so that we can live in an environment of peace for all of us, our youth especially. So God bless all of you. Thank you for your work because it is tireless effortful work. But we all together will form an irresistible wall of determination so that we will change the culture that is today making our society so difficult for so many people. Thank you.
Many thanks, Barbara, again, for your permanent leadership and sharing the contribution that you are supporting since from the Commission for Peace. Thank you very much. Now I have the privilege to give the floor to David Fernandez Puyana. David Fernandez Puyana is our ambassador and permanent representative of the United Nations in Geneva. David has devoted his entire life to the study and the promotion of the peace, education, and the study of international relations. He has combined the work with the civil society and also with international organizations, including the Catalonian Red Cross and the work with other UN agencies. David, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sainz Burgo. First of all, I would like to congratulate the permanent mission of Costa Rica and El Salvador to the United Nations in New York for organizing, in partnership with the University for Peace, the International Day of Education, which this year we are focusing on the role play on the education in peace building. The University for Peace actively participated in the summit of the Group of 20, which took place in the city of Riyadh in 2020. In this context, we distribute among member states a research about the impact of the pandemic, the COVID-19 pandemic, in the enjoyment of human rights and fundamental freedoms. Among the conclusions that we reached, we underlined that there is an increasing and a worrisome rise of xenophobia, racism, intolerance, Islamophobia, anti-Semitism in the world because the COVID-19 pandemic. Taking into account this global trend of hate speech in the world, the University for Peace decided to focus its attention on the interreligious and interfaith dialogue. For this reason, the University for Peace signed recently 3 important memorandums of understanding. One of them is with the Muslim World League, where they are based in Mecca, in Saudi Arabia. Another one with the World Jewish Congress, they are based in New York, and the Lateran Pontifical University of the Holy See. In this sense, we decided to contribute actively to the global debate on this matter within the context of the International Decade of the Rapprochement of Culture, a resolution adopted every year by the General Assembly and in which UNESCO and other important UN agencies play an important role. In this sense, we prepared 2 important publications, and another one is in process to finalization. One of them was presented in 2019 in the city of Jeddah. It's about the promotion of peace, human rights, and dialogue among civilizations. Another one was about the importance of multilateralism, human rights, and diplomacy as a global perspective. And in these books, we can say that high personalities, UN staff, ministers from different governments, presidents, and civil society have been actively contributing to this global debate. To this end, I would like to underline that the co-authors of all these publications understand that peace and security is strongly linked to the enjoyment of human rights, fundamental freedoms, and the right to development. the so-called the 3 UN pillars of the United Nations. In this day, in this important day on education, the best way to counter the extremism and hate speech in the world is through the intercultural and interfaith dialogue and the role played by the Education for Peace, that is one of the main objectives and purpose of the University for Peace, play really an important role in this global debate. And I thank you again, Dr. Sainz Borgo, for inviting me. I'm very honored to participate in this panel discussions and to thank also our rector, Francisco Rojas, also the ambassador of Costa Rica, Mr. Carazo, and ambassador of El Salvador, Ms. Lopez, for inviting us to this important panel. Thank you, Excellency.
Muchas gracias, David. Thank you. Thank you very much for sharing your perspective from Geneva. Last but not least, I have the honor and a great pleasure to give the floor to Denise Maria Soto. Denise is a student from our current program, our current batch. She is studying right now our master program in resolution of conflicts, development, and peace. It's a program in Spanish. She is originally from Nicaragua, where she obtained her law degree from the Universidad Centroamericana. She also is the recipient of the Chevening Scholarship, where she had the opportunity to travel to Bristol in the United Kingdom, where she obtained her master in international law and human rights. And right now she was elected by the UP's community of students as the president of the student body. So we are extremely proud to give the floor to Denise Soto. Denise, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Dr. Regards to all the amazing panelists, organizers, and participants of these events. My experience as a student at the UPs or as a UPiser is defined by the multicultural and diverse component of the members of the student body and faculty, a component that becomes the lens through which we study peace processes in the world. When we enter UPs, we are greeted with the lead motto, if you want peace, work for peace, which in turn develops a philosophy of building peace by educating for peace, a philosophy applied in all the study programs taught at the university. However, in my experience as UPiser, it is the multicultural, diverse, and multidisciplinary environment that allows us to learn how to approach conflict from peace. That convergence of candidates from master programs and doctorate programs, professionals ranging from engineers to environmentalists to lawyers to international relations professionals, coming from different parts of the world, from Japan to Brazil, from Denmark to Sudan, from Venezuela to Yemen, from India to Canada, all with worldviews proper of their cultures, their national and personal circumstances. That convergence is what makes the difference and provides UPC students with the opportunity to listen to ideas, to critiques, proposals, paradigms that were previously out of our reach, thus opening a door of understanding on how the aforementioned pluralities influence the ways of building peace in the world. In my experience, the multiculturalism and diversity of the members of UPs is a key component of the learning process at the university. And it contributes to the development of tools for analysis, communication, tolerance, peaceful existence, and all above, cultural intelligence, all aspects of vital relevance for our professional future as promoters of peace. However, as has been addressed in this webinar, recent years have represented a challenge for education systems worldwide, and UPs has not been the exception. The impact that the pandemic has represented in terms of interaction, integration, and connection constitutes a challenge for the development of the aforementioned components, a challenge for educators and students. Although there are communication platforms and more technological tools that have revolutionized teaching methodologies, there are still gaps that technology has not been able to fill. A gap that goes beyond access to tools and deals with a conflict of adaptation of educational processes to a modern lifestyle and diverse learning circumstances. In the case of the UPs, I have observed that the understanding of the educational process has focused on a comprehensive learning cycle, in which the professors has assumed the role of preservers of the interactions between students, integrating the plurality I mentioned above to be experienced in a hybrid teaching model. At UPs, professors have tried to ensure that students learn by sharing. And although the current circumstances represent a challenge, in recent months it has become clear to me that when educating for peace, you educate for cooperation, for respect, for connection, with empathy and inclusion. I appreciate the adaptation efforts made by the University for Peace and its continuous promotion of multiculturalism and diversity. And I urge you to continue joining efforts to continue improving. Thank you so much and happy International Day of Education.
Gracias, Denise. Thank you very much for your words and your perspective as a student of the current batch of UPs. I'm afraid the time that we have for this event has run so fast that I decide not to open the space for questions and answers, even though we have many questions here so as a result, we have the opportunity to reply them directly. We have a question for Kirsten Grunberg, question for Evelyn Boyd, a question for Georgina Galanis, and many others. So we will have the time to respond to them directly. I think in this event, we have shared many of the problems that we are facing in an era that we would like to call it a post-COVID-19 era, but we know it's not true. We are in the middle of the COVID-19 era. All the problems that we have, something as simple as to organize this event here in New York face-to-face, that we cannot do it of the restrictions. So many of the problems that we're facing. Just one. Secretary General Antonio Guterres shared last year in his report that the year of 2021 is the first year that the increase on the extreme poverty was faced. So imagine if the extreme poverty is rising for the first time in the 21st century, you can imagine the impact on education around the world. So as university, we are grateful for all of you to share your thoughts, your time in this day that is a day to celebrate the Day of Education, but also to reflect and to gather, to work. That I think is the most important goal. As I said before, our gratitude to the permanent mission of El Salvador and Costa Rica. And I would like to ask you to turn on your cameras, to take like a family picture, at least to share the screen all together for a picture, because, you know, if we cannot meet together, at least to have this little memento of that we can see each other on the screen, and to keep that you know that in the middle of the pandemic we were able to meet in the virtual space. Thank you very much for your participation, and I will again our gratitude on behalf of the Costa Rican mission, the El Salvador mission, and the University for Peace. Thank you very much for participation, and see you soon.
Thank you.